Hey, you guys, this is part one of our series. Now, let me give you a warning. It is very triggering, and we always give that disclaimer for people so they know. The person that are interviewing is actually overseas in the United Kingdom, so there may be some buffering issues as well. Hopefully, the closed captioning can help out with some of the things, but just to give you a heads up, it is very triggering and there are some buffering issues. Thank you guys so much. Hello, hello. We are back with another episode of Be Victorious. Thank you guys. We are entering episode number 21, the grown one, the big one. And this guest, honestly, if you know me, he has supported me from day one. Not here in the United States, guys, in the United Kingdom. I keep telling you guys, ACEs is not just something that's happening in the United States. It's a worldwide issue. And we have one of my closest supporters, not only is a teacher, he's a great father. He is an ACEs activist over the United Kingdom. Mick, where are you? Welcome, Mick. Good to see you. How have you been?
I am all right. I finished work about 2 hours ago.
Wonderful. How are things over there in the United Kingdom?
Warm. The summer's gone on a little bit longer than what normal. But it's quite because I work on a farm. So all day I'm on a farm outside.
Interesting.
That's where I teach.
Really?
Yeah. I say it's a farm. I'm a theatre teacher. I was laughing at the start in terms of the lights because I'm a professional lighting technician and engineer in theatre. So I knew straight away actually my chair was in totally the wrong place. But when I retired from mainstream school, we've got a farm and we now teach there. But instead of being a farm, it's a little bit like 15-acre stage set. So we've got a fairy garden in a woodland. We've got an amphitheatre. I'm by a castle. I'm in a full-size castle with rooms in it and a wall around it. That'll be there for another 2 weeks and then that'll disappear. We've got a huge cave at one end. And then in the middle of all that, we've got chickens and ducks and horses and ponies and dogs and guinea pigs and turkeys.
So,
and that's where we teach.
Right. How do the kids like that over there, though? The interaction, not just with, people, but with animals as well. How do they like that?
Well, my better half, my wife, she's a special needs teacher. Thing about an animal doesn't judge people.
Right.
It doesn't care what your background is. It doesn't care what your history is. If you treat that animal well, it will respond to you well. And it doesn't matter if you've got a disability. Animal doesn't care. And we get a lot of kids, because we teach a lot of kids labelled as having major behavioural issues, can't sit in the classroom, can't do this, can't do that. Since the pandemic.
Did you say that they were on the autism spectrum?
Some of them are. We teach a lot of kids from trauma backgrounds. But there's this crossover between trauma and autism.
Right.
And where there's up to an 80% crossover in the traits that. So, for instance, my own daughter, I have 4 daughters. I'm also a granddad as of 2 weeks ago. So I have 4 daughters, and my second eldest was diagnosed with autism at 14.
Okay.
She also has severe epilepsy, which she developed at 17. And for a long time, she used to look at me and say, "You've got autism." And I'd say, "No, I don't." She said, "No, you haven't." I said, "Well, why do you think I've got autism?" And what she used to say, "Well, you do things that they put on my diagnosis."
Smart kid.
And she is. She actually works now again with kids from trauma backgrounds. She did till she had the baby. And it was little things to do with the way I laid out my food on my plate. the way I responded to things. I had no idea. I just always put them down as my foibles. I call it just habits, things I did. I didn't know why I did them.
Right.
For most of my life, I've been very dismissive of any sort of mental health type thing, because I had this thing, just whatever happens, you've got to get up in the morning and just get on with it.
Right.
And it was my mother who drilled that into me.
Oh,
No matter
wow.
what happens, you get up in the morning and you get on with it. But what I did have, which is part of the teaching thing, for some reason, and I didn't know why, I had a connection to a lot of the kids, mostly the kids that nobody else wanted in their class. And because I was a theatre teacher, having 30 kids running around screaming and shouting, climbing up walls, it didn't worry me.
Right.
Another teacher goes into that theatre, and I've seen grown maths teachers cry in corners because they can't handle it. But I have an ability, and I didn't know where it came from, what it was. I can read a room instantly.
You have a pattern.
I now know it's a survival technique. I know that now. At the time, I just knew I did it.
Right.
And then on top of that, I've been a theatre teacher for 30 years. So I've studied physical theatre, facial expressions, proxemics, relationships of people in rooms, etc., and manipulated them as a theatre director. I've used that to affect emotions. So, and then the more and more I taught, the more and more I started working with kids that nobody else wanted to work with, and I was getting results, and I didn't know why. And then I stopped teaching in mainstream, which is when we started doing more and more at the farm, and I was contracted to go into a special school. That was its title. It was more like a secure unit. So there were cameras on each door, magnetic locking doors. During changeover and lessons, there was kids being restrained in the corridors. There was kids smashing up classrooms. Every day there was police being called. And they couldn't have these kids in school. And I used to go in, and we worked there for 2 years. And teachers said, but they don't kick off for you. Why? And the other thing they noticed was that when I went into the corridor, because I had this corridor change of lessons, it was like a battle. And it was a power battle. So when I used to go out in the corridor, what I used to do was sit on the floor in the corner and just sit quietly. And kids would actually come over and sit next to me. And they said, well, why did you sit on the corner? I said, have you not figured it out? Lack of threat. I'm not threatening anybody. I'm the smallest person in there. I'm being quiet. Whereas they were trying to bully the kids. You will go to your next lesson. You will do this. You will do that. And then at the same school, I was in there, and there was a book on the staff room table called We've All Got Bruises. And the second chapter was the ACEs quiz.
Interesting.
And I've never denied my childhood. I knew I'd been abused. I knew it was a violent childhood. I knew I had lots of images that I couldn't handle, put together, or anything. I'd suppressed dreams for 30 years. I haven't had a dream for 30 years at this point.
Right.
Literally, I didn't dream. And I thought, I'm going to read this book. I started reading the book. And there was the ACEs quiz in it. So I like pressing big red buttons. So I thought, right, I will do the ACEs quiz. So I did the ACEs quiz, and I got 10 out of 10.
Okay.
And it was like getting hit with a sledgehammer. It really was. I was sat there in the staff room, all these teachers around. My co-worker, who was our med specialist anyway, and it was the first time she'd seen an ACEs thing, scored 2. Her mum and dad had got divorced and something else she put down. And I'm sat there going, yes, 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 yes. And suddenly I had to take it seriously.
How long ago was that?
That was about 3 years ago now. So I'm 60 now. So I was 57. So I mean, I've been through one marriage, 3 kids, second marriage, another kid. Had a business, became a teacher. Before I realized I had all the connections. I realized I've been abused as a kid, etc. The problem is my story. It's very difficult to describe the story and the way it's because to me it was normal.
Right.
And it was only after I took that ACEs thing. What had happened was I write. You've seen that I scribble. So all the stuff on my Perfect 10 page, that is all new stuff. That's all been written in the last 14 months.
Good.
It's a way I get through it. And I always have. I've got 40 years worth of scribble that I've never shown anybody.
You've been
Sorry?
journaling. It's called
Yeah. I write books, I write poems, I write everything. And I've never thrown a piece of paper out. I've literally got stacks and stacks of this going back 40 years. But I've never knowingly been able to write about my childhood. I've started about 4 times.
Okay.
So I've got 10 pages here, a couple of pages there. And then round about the same time as I took the ACEs test, I was triggered. And at the time, I didn't even know what a trigger was. I just know I've been triggered all my life, but I couldn't have given it a word to it.
Right.
And it was by a news article. And I don't read newspapers and I don't watch the news. I do research, but I don't go to the media for it.
Right.
Because it triggers me. I can't watch a film where a child is threatened. Can't watch a film where somebody is being humiliated or whatever. It's an automatic trigger. And something caught me about the article. It was a face of a known criminal. It was a face I knew. And it just triggered me. And in the space of 18 months, I wrote my whole life story down, as much as I knew. During that time, I'd been on the Clubhouse, the Clubhouse app?
Yes.
And on there, I'd met 2 people. I'd met Leah Abraham and been into her trauma drama room.
Yes.
And I'd met Stacey Henry Carr.
Yes.
A hypnotherapist.
Yes.
And it was Stacey is directly responsible for the Perfect 10 Club.
Oh, cool.
Because it was in her room where I'd been going to both rooms for a while. The first time I ever spoke about my childhood out was in Stacey's room, encouraged by Leah. Right. And after I've been going in a while, one of the things everybody kept saying to me or getting at me was, "You're a man speaking out." And I was getting lots of pats on the head for being a man speaking out. And in one of Stacey's rooms, which was about men speaking out, I said, "Oh, I wonder if I should be doing more to encourage other men." To which Stacey, in her usual way, said, "If you're asking the question, you know the answer." And he just left it at that. And I had an old Instagram page that I'd never used. So I threw all my friends off it, changed the name to the Perfect 10 Club, and started the next day. So literally, it was because of Stacey that I started that.
It makes sense to me. I'm going through your time of when we met and how we met and things. It's perfect because I think that's good for you. That I didn't know that it just recently started. I think that is great for you. I'm a part of the Perfect 10 Club. So yeah, I think it's good for you. I think it helps out a lot. What do you think?
Well, I do. The reason I was laughing about the time zone thing is I'm doing a course at the moment, a relationship course with Dr. Rosanna Bakari. So one Wednesday every month, I have to go on at 1:30 in the morning for a seminar, a webinar thing that she does. everyone else is in the US, so I'm there sort of. I think it's mid-afternoon there or early evening there, and it's sort of 1 o'clock in the morning here.
Yes.
And once I've been late half an hour, and once I've been early half an hour because of this summertime and light saving thing, which is why I sent the second one out. I said, but it's summertime. So yeah, it's and I have to say, because of what I learned in those rooms, and it was something Leah said. Leah said, "Get curious." So Leah's read my story. A couple of others had read my story, and then because I'd written the story, I thought I should contact my family and say, "Look, I've written it, but not only have I written it, I'm beginning to show people."
Right. And what has been
That's
their
only
what has been their reaction?
quite interesting. I've made contact again with my little sister, who I've had very, very little contact with. She asked to see a copy of the book, so I emailed her a copy. She's never read a book in her life. Until then, it took her 4 days, and she read the whole thing in 4 days. She has no contact with my mother. They fell out because my youngest brother, when he died of alcoholism. She nursed him, and my mother refused to go and see him. She told my older sister, who was there all along, has admitted that things went on and whatnot, and is still in contact with my mother, who's now in her 80s, and is in regular contact. So I know that my mother knows, and I know that my sister knows. Neither of them have asked to see the book. Neither of them have disputed anything I've put up. My sister does follow the page. My younger sister follows the page. She's commented on a few things.
Okay.
But the main thing has been everything that was blank in my story has been confirmed.
Right.
Because I've now also had one conversation with my older sister. So my story starts at 3.5. My older sister would have been 6.5, 7. So she's got much better memory of it. And I've had one conversation. She knows I've written the book. Her reaction was, "Tell Michael, I would probably tell the story differently, but I could add a couple of chapters." And when I spoke to her, so just to give you one example, I said, "Look, mother was involved in dodgy adoptions, children being bought and sold." I said, "That's trafficking."
Sure is.
And she said, "Yes." That was her reaction. She doesn't want to read the book. She doesn't want to know. According to her, my mother is too ill for anything to be done about it. She's old and whatnot. She did in the conversation try and remind me of one good memory that she had, which was mother bringing us some hot chocolate when we got off the school bus. And I thought, well, if in 50 years that's the best you can do. She has admitted that she was abused. When I mentioned stepfather, it was just pure hate. She just hates him, doesn't want to talk about him, etc. I mentioned my mother's dodgy financial dealings, and she said, "Oh yes, she knows about every single one of them." So she's obviously been told what went on.
How do you feel about knowing, even though you found out about ACEs later in life, how do you feel about knowing that it is because of ACEs, the things that you were experiencing when you were growing up? How do you feel about knowing that those experiences are ACEs?
That's part of what I'm doing since I found out about it is almost, and this might sound daft, but I'm 60 years old. I've had a successful teaching career. So what I find out now will trigger me. It's going to upset me, but it's not going to change my life.
Right.
I'm happy. I've been with my partner for 20 odd years. We've got another daughter, so I've got 4 beautiful daughters. So I'm happy with that. Do I get triggered all the time? So it can be a beautiful sunny day. I can be walking across the field and I'm in tears and I don't know why. I disassociate like absolute crazy. I've been investigated twice for absence seizures and epilepsy. So major trigger point, anybody comes and stands there. I have long scruffy hair because I haven't had my hair cut in 13 years because I cannot be touched. I hate people touching my hair. I some of the things I'd already figured, but still hadn't sort of put it together as a trauma thing. So I know exactly why you can't touch my hair. My mother's favourite attack was to drag me around the house by my hair while she was kicking me in the head. Therefore, anybody goes near my hair, and I just mirrors. I can't look in. Everyone tells me on this healing journey, mirror work, do mirror work. Mirrors are an intricate part of my trauma.
Wow.
There was I have a memory of a man from when I was about 6. The only memory I've had, he was naked. On one of the occasions, it was in his bedroom and he had a wall of mirrors. I have no memory of getting there, how I was there, I just have the memory.
Right.
So I've obviously blanked the rest out. I have some very clear memories as well. I remember all the violence. My stepfather was into ritualistic violence. So and this is the thing. Once I found out about the ACEs, I started talking to my mental health co-worker. She comes from a children's mental health background. And what we've almost done is use me as a guinea pig, because the more I find out about how it's affected me, the more I can do to help the kids.
Right.
And it's not good.
This is what you do for your students.
Yeah. It's not going to do me any harm. The harm is already done to me.
Yeah.
So it's about what I can do for the kids. And now I know why I'm reading the kids, but I also know what I'm reading. Because I've learned a whole new vocabulary. I've learned things I didn't even know existed.
Right.
And there's all these things that I notice about me, these habits, my foibles. But once I found out about the ACEs, I started opening a little bit more to my co-worker. And it's when you say things to people that, to me, was just my childhood. And then you suddenly look across and they've gone, no, that's not. So, for instance, punishment-wise, as a child, so you're talking between the ages of, I was with my stepfather from the age of 3.5 up to the age of 14. So a 10-year period. If you were punished, it was for a week, a fortnight, or a month. And what that punishment would be, every night you would come in from school, you would have your tea, you would have a bath, and then you would sit on the stairs to wait for him to come in to beat you. And it would be set for a week or a month, and he was a military man. It would be carried out for a week or a month or whatever every day.
Corporal punishment, that's what they call it. Some people call it corporal punishment, but nonetheless, it's not okay.
And you would literally, I mean, I have memories of this man with the 4 of me, my adopted younger siblings, my sister, me, 1 o'clock in the morning, stood on the upstairs landing in our pajamas, with him behind us with a bamboo cane. And we were up there for sort of 2 or 3 hours. He was a sadist, and I'm assuming he was getting whatever it was out of that. When I say that to people and people go, well, my mother was more violent.
Wow.
He was terrified of my mother. I have
Really?
memories of him. I have memories of him barricading himself in the bedroom so my mother couldn't get to him. And he was a big 6-foot military man, and she was 5 foot nothing. Is 5 foot nothing.
Really?
Oh yeah, my mother is the most violent person I have ever come across in my life.
Wow. We recently this mother womb has been the part of the discussions for me. Um yeah, God, that's heavy. It's heavy because you have people that have different relationships, but this is the person that birthed you and had kids, and all the things that you have said mom has done. She was abusive. She did sex trafficking. This is your
I
mom.
asked my mother. But the only time my mother has ever visited me since I've been in this house and been with my current partner was about 12 years ago. And she called in for 5 minutes. Now, England isn't a small country. You can get from the top of England to the bottom of England in 5 hours, 4 hours. You know, we're not talking a vast country. And we live in the middle, literally in the middle. And she visited me. She stopped about 10 minutes. And I actually asked her about the violence. And she explained to me then, with a smile on her face, that every time she hit me, it was in cold blood and pre-planned.
She told
Yep, in front of witnesses.
you?
And my mother never lied to me. I'll say that for her. She never lied to me. My mother is saying, because I find it Mother's Day is a really difficult time for me. I say all these wonderful things about mothers, and I know some wonderful mothers. There's one downstairs.
Oh.
I have a lot of respect. I'm totally intimidated by academics. I'm totally intimidated by women, powerful women.
But
I
you,
really am.
but you love
I
me.
know, and you wouldn't. I do, but you wouldn't believe how intimidating that is for me. I'm to give you a. This is what I mean about my story. My mother, in 1966, left her eldest 2 children, 8 and 9, sat on the doorstep, waiting for their father to come home from work. He wasn't getting home from work till midnight. She took her youngest 2 children to run off with a paedophile to the other end of the country, where she set up and was involved in baby farms. She adopted 3 children, one of which was around for a year. I only thought it was a few weeks, but I've had it confirmed since that the little girl was there for about a year and then she disappeared. My younger sister, that she kept until she was 13. At the age of 13, my younger sister had to go into the hospital to have a kidney removed. I didn't know about this. And we all know what kidney problems can come from. My younger sister has no memory before the age of 13.
Right.
And while she was in hospital, my mother put her back into the care system.
So how is the system? I know we've talked in detail about the health system and things of that nature over there in England, but how is it for real? So they don't even address these type of things?
Well, one thing you've got to look at in context, and because this was one of the puzzle pieces I was trying to fit together. My younger sister siblings were adopted in 1968.
Right.
In 1969, they regulated adoptions in the UK.
Mm.
Up till that point, adoptions were organised by church and charity.
Yeah. Okay.
1969. By 1970, my mother's business had gone bust, and we'd had to do a moonlight and move to the other end of the country again.
Because she was busted.
Basically, now my younger sister had tracked down her birth mother, who was brought to the house when she was 15 to be shown this wonderful family that daughter who was about to be born was going to.
Hmm.
And what I was finding was all these coincidences. And her birth mother, the only thing she remembers, she came from a big old-fashioned Victorian nursing type home, sort of film set type place.
Mm-hmm.
I'd gone past a world-famous race course to get to our house. And I tracked it down because between us and this big nursing home type place, I say I tracked it down. It was actually one of my daughters that tracked it down. There's Brands Hatch, which used to be the Formula One racing track in the UK. And she would have had to driven right past it. And the nursing home that was tracked down was part of the Family International, which were a cult in the 1960s, started in America, that preached sex with children. My elder sister, my younger sister, was brought to the house by a doctor who also offered my mother, and she got this from her birth mother, who also offered my mother another child, a boy. No one else involved, just this doctor. The boy arrived, that was Adam. Adam, I just had this vague idea that he never had any papers. I found out from my younger sister when he got to 18, he didn't even have a birth certificate. And I was kicking myself because I'm a history teacher and I hadn't clicked because I also had this vague idea that Adam's parentage was Jewish Jordanian, so Arab Israeli.
Hmm.
He was adopted in 1968 without papers, the year after the end of the Arab-Israeli 7-Day War. And the Family International founder has links with Israel.
Hmm. Hmm. So you're
1970.
doing your research, which is good. It's is doing the research making sense to you? Is it starting to bring back, like, is that what it is that
Oh
helps?
yeah, yeah, and the problem is it got worse because when we moved back to Hartlepool, which is where I was born, the last house we were in Hartlepool, and by the time I was 16, I'd lived in 50 houses and had 13 schools, and been kept off school for a year. And then, did you see the broadcast that LP did with Sarah Almaraz?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, me and Sarah Almaraz, from the moment we met, just had a link.
Good.
Don't know what it was, but we had a link. And I know her full story. And I heard her relating some of the story about her background and everything that had gone on. And a couple of things just twigged. So I did some investigation. And in 1974, which was the year I have very clear memories of being raped by my stepfather. But at the time, we were living next door. We'd had to do a moonlight flip. We'd lost a house. So in the middle of the night, we'd all moved. And the house we'd moved into, we were renting off the next door neighbours, which were Jehovah's Witnesses. So after 3 more moves in the space of 6 months, I was then kept off school for a year. And one of the only places I was allowed to go was to the house of an elder of the Jehovah's Witness Church. And there was another boy there, and I have some very dodgy memories there, but they fitted with what some of the things that Sarah Almaraz was saying. So again, I put my history teacher head on and did the research and found out that there is still an ongoing historical investigation into the Jehovah's Witnesses running paedophile rings, 1974.
Really? To this day?
Yes, it's ongoing. There's still an investigation in Scotland into the Family International. And I tried to get information off the police and was told I wasn't allowed it because there was an ongoing investigation.
Wow.
After we had to leave, we then left Hartlepool. We then moved to Doncaster. We initially were living in the red light district in Doncaster. The last night I spent at home, which was, I was about 13, maybe just about 14, we had a mob at the back door trying to get to my stepfather. And when I asked my mother what was going on, why was he hiding upstairs, she told me it was about time I left. So she kicked me out. So 20 minutes later, I was on a bus. That was it. I was out at 14. I have since found out that the house that they were in was midway between Doncaster and Rotherham, and there is a current historical investigation going on to the trafficking of children in that area between. After they left.
Let me tell you something. You have to tell this, like, you have to tell this story. You have to.
That's what I'm trying to do now on the Perfect 10 Club, because even that, after they left there, the next place that my mother and my stepfather moved to was Greater Manchester at the end of the 90s and into the 2000s. And at the end of the 90s and into the 2000s, taxi driver, which was my stepfather's new job, there's just been a load of investigations and things because taxi drivers around Greater Manchester were running girls around thing. I mean, we're a working class family with a working class background. Yeah. And in 1968, we had a 15-year-old Belgian au pair girl staying with us for 18 months. And my sister used to disappear off the holidays with this girl for 6 weeks at a time. And the problem was, I had all this in bits and pieces and had never thought about it. But as a history teacher, I don't believe in coincidence. If my mother had been in the area of one of these things, fine. But every time I look over my shoulder now, and like I say, nobody's denying anything.
Can I share all of these or the reasons why you get triggered so much?
Yeah, I mean, I get triggered for. I mean, I have some. So the dreams, for instance, some really bad dreams. It's this thing about children. I have, and again, what I've been doing is trying to research. I have this image of being locked in a cellar on Christmas Day with my sister and another little boy, a little boy that I know we were told he'd died. And we went to visit his parents. Strangely, the same parents were living next door to us on the very last night I was at home. After that night, them and my mother, who were long-term friends, never spoke to each other again. And we were just told not to mention this boy because he died, and they were very upset.
Right.
And I have visions of being in this cellar. But what I had to do was to match it to a building that had a cellar, and 1968. Well, in 1968, we were living in what used to be a coach house, which was an old inn type thing, road inn, which had a cellar. But not only did it have to have a cellar, it had to be snowing. So I Googled the weather forecast in 1968. And it was one of the mildest winters ever, no snow, until 3 days before Christmas, when there was a freak snowstorm which covered the whole of the town. And that was my memory. And again, that's then been confirmed by other people. I had a memory of being told I wasn't grateful enough for going into a certain celebrity's car. And this happened 2 or 3 times. I even had a name. Now, the celebrity's dead now. Right. So I researched it and found out 1968, yeah, he was born and bred in Dover, which is where we were staying. Oh, not Dover, Dartford. And I mentioned it to my little sister, and her immediate reaction was, oh, no, that's true, because my mother used to brag about it.
This I don't do pre-planning like I should, but my past few episodes, I've been like this. On this episode, my mouth is wide open because number one, it took us a lot to get here, and I thank you so much for being here. But what you're sharing, God bless
I
you.
mean, I had no idea about trafficking. I had no idea. I knew I'd been abused. I knew it had been a violence, but I thought moving around 50 different houses was, you know, I some schools I went to twice. I have no, I don't have a single friend from childhood.
It's crazy. And see,
There is nobody.
I know one of the first times we talked, what I loved was that you were saying, see, things need to happen big time over in the United States so it can impact everywhere else.
Mm.
And that's what we're doing, hopefully, because this story has to go somewhere. It has to make an impact. It has to be shared. It has to gather because there's somebody else that's going to say, this happened to this young man, but these things happened to us.
I mean, the reason I'm a teacher, again, it is weird. I'm a teacher because I refused to do what I was told.
Right.
I stood up to my mother I first stood up to my mother when I was 11. There was a big family hoo-ha. And basically, from what I'd picked up afterwards, well, what happened was she was called round to it was like a big matriarchal family. She had these aunties, and they sort of ruled the roost. And she was called round to face the music.
Right.
And she left me and my younger siblings in the car for 10 minutes, and we were sat outside this house for 2.5 hours. And I was 11. And when my mother came out, she turned round and I knew what she was going to do. She was going to offload onto us. She was going to vent at the kids because of what on. And I don't know where it came from. I turned around and said, right, to be honest, Mum, I'm not interested. I don't want to know. I thought she was going to kill me. She didn't. I did get a battering for it, but she didn't kill me. But she told me then she would never discuss family business with me again. And she didn't. From the age of 11, she never discussed anything that went on in the family. The next time I confronted her about it, I was about 20. I'd had a bit of a breakdown at college. Told my older brother. And again, that's when my sister first said yes, and it had gone on with her. And his wife said when they were living there, because his wife at one point was living with us at 15, said something had gone on. We went over, my brother was this, right, we're going over, we're going to sort this out. She warned my stepfather off, so he'd left town. And when we got there, she met us at the door, wouldn't let us in the house, and told her I was making her ill. And then the next time I discussed it with her was when she told me that every time she'd hit me, it had been pre-planned. The concept was she thought it was about time I deserved to have a good hiding. So what she'd do is the next morning, whatever I did, small or big, I would get a good hiding. And she also would like to do it publicly. So she'd give you a good hiding in front of everybody, literally drag you around by your hair, kick you in the head, throw you around. From the age of 13 through to 25, I was addicted to painkillers. I didn't know why. I used to get the worst migraines in the world. So I was popping all sorts of weird and wonderful painkillers.
Wow.
I'm assuming, I can't prove anything now, but I'm assuming probably because I'd spent so long getting kicked in the head. She had a trick of throwing at objects. So she could hit you on the head with, she used to wear these slipper shoes that had wooden heels on. And if you were doing something she didn't like, or she would just decided you deserved a good hiding, she would throw one, hit you on the side of the head with it. So and by the time
I don't know, I'm just asking a question. You all couldn't call the police over there?
You want the honest truth? Because I've thought about this a lot. No, I'm not. Because I don't need it. It's out there. I'm going to tell the story.
Oh.
She's got to live with her conscience. I'm
Mhm.
not pulling any punches over it.
Oh, you have to do.
If she,
Yes, congratulations. But where was the police when all this stuff was happening? Where were the people when you were
well,
younger and this stuff was happening? How come nobody intervened?
well, you know, I said there was this investigation from when we were in the Doncaster Rotherham area.
Right.
There has also just been a historical investigation into the failures of the social services during the time that
Right.
we were
Okay.
there.
Right.
So
You
you've
just
got to say, at the age of 13, so you're talking, yeah, seventh grade, isn't it?
Mhm.
So just into high school.
Yeah.
I was living on the street and cleaning toilets before school and working at the markets. Social services didn't pick up on it
Mhm.
because after I left home, I spent a few weeks at one brother's, a few weeks at another brother's. I spent about a year in this sort of squat type house where he was nicking electric from next door. And I spent about 8 months with a divine light meditation cult.
Mhm.
Um, so I was just however I could. I also spent some time in the army because I wasn't allowed to stay on at school. That's what I was told.
Right.
Um, when I was 13, I saw a careers video about being a teacher,
Mhm.
and I went home and told my mother I wanted to be a teacher. And she told me I was too thick. Don't be stupid. No way you're going in the army. Um, so at 16, even though I was living on the streets, I went into the army.
Wow.
Tried to commit suicide after 2 months. Um, I I was stubborn. I was actually discussing this with a woman I've just recently met through ACES thing. Um, Violence is irrelevant to me.
Mhm.
It hurts. I'm not a big, hard, strong man. It
Yes.
hurts.
Mhm.
But okay, you've hit me. What now?
Right.
So, for instance, in the army, they put us in a boxing ring to see who could fight in the championship. I can't box. This lad blacked both my eyes, broke my nose, knocked one of my teeth out. And what they did was they put us in to see how long we'd last. If you went down after 30 seconds, they dragged you out. I was in there for 7 minutes before they stopped it. And he
Okay.
just made mincemeat up, but I wouldn't go down. Um, and it by the time I was 11, I'd seen various stabbings and got involved in street gangs and whatnot because I was on the streets drinking.
Right.
Um,
11.
yeah,
Wait, I have wait before you continue. Um, let's pause real quick. Need to do like a part two because this is just the beginning. Whoa. I know this was a lot to unpack, you guys. So what we're going to do is actually break this up into two parts. So we're going to start with one part and then we're going to go ahead and go with the other ones. So just to give you guys a heads up, that's exactly what we're going to do.